Salam, salam. Yo, guys, welcome back in today. Today we're going to be talking about Alias Tedessa. Now, he already has a restaurant called Melage in DC, but he's opening up a new restaurant, which is going to be a soul food. Well, actually, it's probably already opened up, if I'm correct. I don't live in DC, somebody let me know. But he has a new restaurant, which is going to be a Ethiopian soul food fusion. So it's going to be called Doro Soul Food, and it's going to mix Ethiopian flavors with soul food, African American food. Now, a little backstory on him. He grew up in Ethiopia, right? So he knew the different spices and different flavors around Ethiopia. Even if you guys don't know, Ethiopia is a country, right? And it's made up of over 80 tribes, maybe 82, 84 tribes. I don't know exactly how many different tribes there are in Ethiopia, or different ethnic groups in Ethiopia. And so everybody doesn't do things the same way. All make their berber, which is a spice, differently. So there are differences, and it's interesting because eventually I actually want to make a video, because even what people know as Ethiopian food, or what I guess is more like, they think that Ethiopian food is all injera, right, which is like a sponge bread. And basically I think a lot of people think that the staple for Ethiopia is injera. There's actually different foods around Ethiopia depending on what ethnic group you go to, right? There's even a certain ethnic group and tribe in Ethiopia where they have rice dishes, and they have a big huge rice dish that I don't think a lot of people even know about. So Ethiopia obviously as a country comes together just like the United States as a country, but in Ethiopia there's just different melanated people that have different traditions, to where in America obviously there's a lot more differences, right? You have Asian people, you have European people of European descent, all these type of different people that are coming together in one country. And so you can think the same thing, except for everybody has, closer to the same hue skin tones when it comes to Ethiopia, or really any African country for that matter, right? Ethnically, there's just differences when it comes to food, tradition, song, right? So with that being said, once he moved from Ethiopia, he moved to Minnesota, if I'm correct, and then he grew up in Minnesota in the Midwest for some time, and then he went and he started to go to school, culinary school. He eventually did a lot of practicing with Michelin star chefs. Then he went to France to study as well, right, in different culinary arts, different styles. And then he came back to America, and now he lives in DC. So what is Doro Soul Food going to offer? It's very interesting because actually I've never even thought about a Ethiopian African American soul food mashup fusion. I actually thought about Somali because you guys know I live in Ohio, so obviously, in the Midwest, Somali people are a lot, and of course there's a lot of Ethiopian Eritreans in the Midwest, but who dominates is Somali people, especially in Minnesota and Ohio. And then obviously when you go to DC, who dominates is Ethiopian and Eritrean people, right? So it's just interesting to think about this mashup. There's going to be a couple things that I'm going to show you guys the menu at the end, but there's a couple things on here that's really interesting to me, like the mashup between Ethiopian spices and macaroni and cheese. They're actually going to take cornbread and put a Ethiopian spread over it, right, with Ethiopian flavors. So it's going to be really interesting to see this mashup, right? Also, there's going to be a mashup with like fried chicken, right? Like the black style in America of fried chicken, and what you match it up with. And I've seen a couple things on the menu that had like Doro, or Doro, right? Doro. Some people, if you're Ethiopian, you know Doro Wat, or even if you're not Ethiopian, you might know Doro Wat, Tibbs. What else do we have? Well, actually, I'm gonna save that last thing because I'm vegan, vegetarian. You guys know, so this was really interesting to me. There's another thing, but if you're Ethiopian, you know Doro, right? And Doro Wat. And so he's going to be mixing Ethiopian traditional flavors with soul food. This can only be good. I think that this can only be good. If you've never had Ethiopian food, well, let me tell you this. You're missing out, right? I grew up eating a lot of food that's in that area, right? Ethiopia, Eritrea, even in Somalia. I don't know about Djibouti, but of course Djibouti has obviously ethnically, or maybe that's not even the right thing to say, but they, there's Somali people in Djibouti ethnically, and then there's a Far tribe, which I think a lot of people would know. A Far people being more so from Ethiopia, and maybe Eritrea. And then I don't think a lot of people know that Afar people are actually in Djibouti as well. And then obviously Somali people, because Djibouti's right on top of Somalia. But with that being said, I grew up and I have family members obviously that are, from Eritrea and then Ethiopia as well. And the crazy thing about it is that I grew up on injera. I grew up eating Doro, Wat, Tibbs, things like that. Really spicy. It can get really spicy, especially when you're talking about mitmida, right? Mitmida. If you're Ethiopian, you know mitmida is very spicy. It's a spicy spice. We like being spicy. You know what I'm saying? Everybody loves being spicy. And I think this is why this mashup and fusion of African American soul food and Ethiopian food would be so good, because obviously a lot of black people in America love spicy food, right? And obviously a lot of Ethiopians love spicy food. And me knowing both cultures and knowing the mashup, right, and the way that these things taste, right, growing up on both of them, it's really interesting because this is a match made in heaven. I don't really know why a lot of people probably haven't done this sooner. And they actually even are going to have a veggie burger, and I don't know if it's going to be at this soul food, Doro soul food. I don't know if it's going to be at this location, right? It might be at the burger shop that he has, or the burger joint that he has. But there is a veggie burger that they're making, which is correct me if I'm wrong, Ethiopians, my pronunciation, I grew up in America, it's horrible, I'm sorry. Hopefully I said it right. But Beyaintu, right? That he's actually having a hamburger. And if you guys don't know what Beyaintu is, if I'm saying it right, it's like a platter, a veggie platter in Ethiopia. So the interesting thing about it is that when you eat Ethiopian greens, they're very close to soul food African American greens. That was one of the biggest things when I was younger. When I ate them, I was just like, yo, they're both greens. Now, I would say in Ethiopian greens, from what my experience and what I know, I don't know everything, of course, right? Ethiopia is a big country, but from what I know, the greens in Ethiopia, especially when it's on the injera, it's not really wet. It's wet a little bit. It's a little bit wet, a little bit, juicy a little bit, but it's not as juicy. To where, from what I'm used to, at least from my family and how I grew up with greens for African Americans in America, is that the greens that I like are more watery. It's more of sort of kind of like a soup, the base greens. I like when you pull the greens out and the juice is still dripping from them. That's the type of greens that I like. And I even like sometimes when greens have a little bit of the flavor and juice at the bottom of it after you eat all the greens. And I mean, you can even drink it, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of similarities, right? And a lot of things that we actually eat. Of course, in Ethiopian culture, there's a lot of chickpeas, right? In African American culture, there's a lot of beans, and especially rice, especially when you're in the South. There's a lot of especially in the Creole culture, there's dirty rice. There is red beans and rice, right? These are all African American dishes, right? And then in Ethiopia, you have lentils, right? Beans, lentils. And these mashups, I think, will work perfectly. When I seen the cornbread with the Ethiopian spread on it, I don't know what it was on there. I don't know if it was Doro, or, well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe not Doro, but I have to look at it. But maybe it was maybe it was. I don't know. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to look at the menu again. But that on cornbread, oh God, that would be so delicious and so interesting. So, guys, if you're in DC, you should go check out this fusion between Ethiopian and African American restaurant. It only makes sense. Look, we're in DC. We're in Washington, DC in America. I'm not, but I'm saying, I'll be there one day. I've been there before, but I'll be there. But I'm saying for the people that are there, right, it makes sense. There's mad Ethiopians, right? And then there's mad African Americans. And so the fusion is amazing because the brother, he grew up on Ethiopian food, but then he's also had soul food. And he's like, yo, let's mix them together. And I just love fusion restaurants that are like that, because there's so much great food, I think, on both sides that the world just doesn't know, or if they do know it, they don't give it the culinary excellence that what it really is. Because when I eat Ethiopian food, I feel amazing, and I feel like Ethiopian food can be in a 5-star restaurant. Matter of fact, I'm waiting for a 5-star Ethiopian restaurant, but as I'm waiting for a 5-star Ethiopian restaurant, which might actually exist somewhere in this world, but I've never heard of one, right? I'm also waiting for a 5-star soul food African American restaurant as well, because I feel like a lot of times soul food especially is slept on. And yes, it changes from the south to the north, right? And then some people, obviously with modern times, are trying to cook it a little bit more healthier. Back in the day, they might have used like lard or pig fat, right? Whatever that might have been, or whatever they used. And then now a lot of people are trying to use, like, instead of pork, turkey meat, right? Instead of like lard and whatever fats that they might have used, they might try to use like a oil or vegetable oils, right? So it's like some people are more traditionalist. Some people would say soul food needs to be a little bit more not as healthy for it to taste as good, right? Especially in the South, some people. But some people would say, look, it's the progression of soul food, and it might be even the progression of Ethiopian food. Now, the crazy part would be, brother, if you've seen this, if you had like kitfu, right? If I'm correct, is that kitfu? Is that raw beef? So there's a dish in Ethiopia. It's a traditional dish. Offering that rare dish, because it's rare. It's not rare to Ethiopians, but it's rare to people outside of Ethiopia. And I think for some people that are accepting of the culture, some people that eat sushi, because if you already eat sushi, you already eat raw fish. So raw beef, yes, I know it's a lot for a lot of people, but raw beef, raw sushi, raw fish, raw beef, right? I'm just trying to get it in your head, you know what I'm saying? But you could actually offer a dish, or maybe even a challenge would be dope, to where you offer raw beef on top of like some type of soul food dish, which I don't really know what that would be, to be honest with you. Maybe you could offer a raw beef in like a gumbo. What about that? What if you make the gumbo, you have the raw beef, you throw the raw beef into the gumbo while the gumbo's hot, and then tell people they have to eat it quickly. Of course, it won't be the same 100% raw, but I think that would be a way that people would actually consume it and eat it in America, because of course a lot of people here are not used to eating raw beef. So hey, it's just my thought. Maybe that won't even work, but it's just a thought. But yo guys, check out the restaurant if you're in DC. I have the address down here. And when you're in DC, check them out. If you like this video, like, subscribe, turn on the bell notification so you get all my videos. Add me on all social medias, which is African Network, which is Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok. Each one teach one. Always love each other. Always learn from each other. And yo guys, until next time, go try. Peace. One love.